If you are familiar with reading romance novels, then you know that in general, the heroines are mostly young. They can be from their 20s to maybe as much as 40, but that generally speaking, they're in their 20s and maybe their early 30s. They aren't much older than that in the general romance. But I've had this idea for quite a while about writing some romances that are for older women, that show that life doesn't really end at 50 or 40 or whatever. And the first idea I had was for one that would be a contemporary. I haven't written that yet, but it's back there in the back of my mind, maybe one of these days. But in the meantime, last fall, another idea came to me. And it was to use a woman that I had written about in both Tucson Moon and Arizona Dawn. Rose is has been a housekeeper to the heroine in Tucson Moon and a confidant, kind of almost a second mother. And then in Arizona Dawn, her husband had died. He had died 3 years earlier. And Rose was still going through a great grieving period in a lot of ways. She didn't even know how much she was grieving. She was kind of in a fog. And when the heroine came to town to live with her for a while, it began to wake her back up, and she began to come to herself and be the woman she had been. But now something new has come to town. It's a man who had known Rose when she was married, but of course that wasn't possible. She had a happy marriage, but now she's a widow, and he is determined to court her. And Rose has to really think about this, because when you're an older woman, you've got a lot of things that you have to consider. There's your family. What are they going to think? What are they going to think? This changes everything for everybody if I do this. And there's, am I too old for it? I thought it'd be fun to write a story like this because I've been 60, and I know I'm not too old for it. I thought it would be interesting to explore this possibility of a heroine who was 60 years old, and she doesn't need a man, but this guy, he really is awakening something in her, something she never really actually had even experienced before. And it's going to the story brings together the whole family from all three of my Arizona historical books. They're not all real thrilled about this either. It's like, wow, change. You kind of get used to people in a certain role. And I think that's what's useful about writing a romance about an older woman. Age isn't quite the limitation we think it is. And that's what Rose's Gift is about.